The stars looked different from space. Jack Stone knew this well after 3 years as captain of the research vessel Horizon. Earth had finally reached beyond its own borders, sending ships to the closest stars to learn what was out there. Humanity was taking its first real steps into the galaxy. Jack stood on the bridge of his ship looking at the main screen. His crew of 30 moved around him, checking readings and talking in low voices. The Horizon wasn't big or fancy, but it was a good ship with good people. "Captain," called Mike from his station. "I'm picking up something strange." Jack walked over. Mike was the best sensor operator in the fleet. If he said something was strange, it was worth paying attention to. "What do you have?" Mike pointed to his screen. "This energy reading, I've never seen anything like it. It's massive and it's coming this way. Fast." Before Jack could answer, the lights on the bridge flickered. The main screen went dark for a moment, then came back on, showing something that made Jack's blood run cold. A ship. No, not just a ship. A monster. It was huge, at least 20 times bigger than the Horizon, black as the space around it and shaped like a long, sharp pyramid. It moved without any visible engines, without any light or heat that their sensors could detect. "What is that?" whispered Anna, the ship's doctor. No one had an answer. Humanity had never encountered alien life before, despite years of searching. "Open communications," Jack ordered. "All channels, all languages we have." Tom, the ship's engineer, tried to send their standard greeting message. Nothing happened. "They're not responding, sir." Jack felt something he hadn't felt in years. Real fear. "Get us out of here, maximum speed." The Horizon turned and its engines fired, pushing the ship away from the massive object. For a moment, Jack thought they might escape. Then the ship shuddered. The engines screamed, but the Horizon didn't move forward. Instead, it began to slide backward toward the black ship. "We're caught in some kind of pull," shouted Tom. "The engines can't break free." Jack watched helplessly as his ship was dragged toward the alien vessel. The black ship opened like a giant mouth, revealing a glowing interior. The Horizon was pulled inside, and the mouth closed behind them. The lights went out. Emergency power came on, bathing the bridge in red light. "Everyone, stay calm," Jack said, though his own heart was racing. "We don't know who they are or what they want. They might be peaceful." The ship shuddered again. A loud hissing sound filled the air. Jack smelled something sweet, and then his eyes grew heavy. The last thing he saw before he fell unconscious was a section of the wall melting away, and tall figures moving through the opening. Jack woke up with a pounding headache. He was lying on a cold metal floor in a room with no windows. The walls glowed with a faint blue light that seemed to come from nowhere. His uniform was gone, replaced by a simple gray jumpsuit. Around his neck was a heavy metal collar. He sat up slowly, fighting off waves of dizziness. He wasn't alone. 20 other humans were in the room with him, all wearing the same gray jumpsuits and metal collars. Some he recognized from his crew. Others were strangers. "Captain," a voice said. Jack turned to see Tom sitting against a wall nearby. "You're awake." "What happened?" Jack asked, his voice rough. "Where are we?" "We're on the alien ship," Tom said. "They took the whole crew. I think there are people from other Earth ships, too." Before Jack could ask more questions, one of the walls simply disappeared. Standing there were the aliens. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with 6 limbs, 4 arms and 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. Their heads reminded Jack of praying mantises with large compound eyes and small moving parts around what might have been mouths. One of the aliens stepped forward. It wore some kind of device on its upper left arm. When it spoke, the device translated its clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless English. "Stand when your masters enter," it said. No one moved. The alien pressed something on a small device it held. Suddenly, the collar around Jack's neck burned with pain. He fell to his knees, gasping. Around him, the other humans were doing the same. "Stand when your masters enter," the alien repeated. Fighting through the pain, Jack forced himself to his feet. The others did the same. As soon as they were all standing, the pain stopped. "Better," the alien said. "You learn quickly for simple animals." "We're not animals," Jack said, his voice stronger now. "We're human beings. We have rights. We—" The pain came again, worse this time. Jack bit his tongue to keep from screaming. The taste of blood filled his mouth. "Tools do not speak unless asked a question," the alien said. "You are property of the Dominion now. You will work, you will obey, or you will die." The pain stopped. Jack remained standing, though his legs shook with the effort. "I am Overseer First Class," the alien said. "You will address me as Master. You will now be evaluated for your usefulness." Over the next few hours, the humans were taken one by one into another room. When they returned, they looked shaken. When Jack's turn came, he was led into a clinical white room where 3 aliens waited. They didn't speak to him. They poked and prodded him with instruments that sometimes hurt. They took samples of his blood, his hair, even scraping cells from the inside of his cheek. They tested his strength by making him lift increasingly heavy objects until he couldn't anymore. They tested his intelligence with puzzles that grew more complex. Through it all, they spoke to each other in their clicking language, not bothering to translate. They treated him like a farmer might examine a horse or cow he was thinking of buying. When they were done, they put a mark on his jumpsuit, a symbol in their language. Then they returned him to the holding room. This continued for days. More humans were brought in, some Jack recognized from news reports as crews from other Earth ships. All wore the same blank expressions, the same gray jumpsuits, the same metal collars. From bits of conversation he managed to overhear, Jack learned that the aliens, the Dominion, had hit Earth hard and fast. Millions of humans had been taken already. The Dominion saw humans as nothing more than clever animals, good for labor in their vast empire. On the 6th day, the humans were split into groups based on the markings on their jumpsuits. Jack watched as his people were taken away one by one. Anna, his doctor, gave him one last desperate look before she was led through a doorway. Mike tried to run back to the group and was dropped by the pain from his collar, then dragged away, unconscious. Finally, only Jack and Tom remained from the original Horizon crew, along with about 30 strangers. "Listen to me," Jack whispered to Tom as they waited their turn. "This isn't the end. Remember who we are, what we've survived as a species. Don't let them break you." Tom's eyes were dull with pain and fear, but he nodded. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Jack looked around to make sure no Dominion were watching. "They think we're animals. That's their mistake. The wall vanished again. A new overseer entered, this one with red markings on its scales. "Mining unit, follow," it ordered. As Jack and Tom were led away with the others, Jack caught Tom's eye. A silent understanding passed between them. The Dominion had made a critical error. They had studied human biology but had completely misunderstood human psychology. They didn't understand human resilience, ingenuity, or our capacity for both cooperation and calculated vengeance when pushed too far. They didn't understand that calling humans slaves was the beginning of their end. As they were loaded onto a transport ship bound for some distant mining world, Jack made a promise to himself. He would survive. He would find a way to fight back, and someday the Dominion would regret the day they ever came to Earth. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. They called us slaves. We burned their armies to ash. Dangerous Ship Part 2. The Awakening. 3 years had passed since Earth fell to the Dominion. 3 years of pain, hard work, and careful watching. Jack had been moved between 5 different mining operations. Each one was worse than the last. Now he worked in the engine rooms of a massive Dominion warship called the Subjugator. The name made Jack smile in a bitter way. The Dominion liked names that showed their power. They didn't realize how much humans hated being subjugated, or how dangerous that hatred could become. Jack's job was simple but hard. He cleaned the massive engines that powered the ship. The work was hot and the air was full of chemicals that burned his lungs. His hands were covered in burns and cuts that never fully healed. The Dominion didn't care if their slaves got hurt, as long as they could still work. "Move faster, tool," said a Dominion overseer, clicking his pincer-like hands together. All Dominion called humans tools instead of people. It was their way of showing that humans weren't real beings to them, just things to be used. Jack kept his eyes down and moved faster. He had learned when to push back and when to obey. Today was a day for obeying. He had more important things to do than fight with an overseer. The work shift lasted 12 hours. When it was done, Jack and the other engine room workers were marched to the feeding area. The food was a gray paste that tasted like nothing. It had all the things a human body needed to stay alive, but nothing more. Jack ate quickly, not wasting time. As he finished, someone bumped into him. It was Tom. After 3 years, Tom looked different. He was thinner, with gray in his hair even though he was only 35. But his eyes still had the same sharp look they'd had on the horizon. "Waste management needs help," Tom said loudly, for the benefit of any Dominion who might be listening. "You've been reassigned for 2 hours." Jack nodded and followed Tom. This wasn't unusual. Slaves were often moved around to different jobs when needed. The Dominion didn't care which human did what job as long as the work got done. They walked through the huge ship's corridors. The Subjugator was one of the biggest ships in the Dominion fleet. It had 20 levels and could carry thousands of Dominion troops. It also had about 500 human slaves who did all the dirty, dangerous work the Dominion didn't want to do. When they were in a service tunnel where no Dominion ever went, Tom stopped. "Did you get it?" he asked, his voice low. Jack looked around to make sure they were alone, then reached into a hidden pocket he had made in his jumpsuit. He pulled out a small metal object that looked like a broken piece of engine, but it wasn't broken. Jack had made it, piece by piece, over many weeks. "It works?" Tom asked. Jack nodded. "I tested it on myself yesterday. It blocks the collar's signal for about 30 seconds. Tom smiled. It was a hard smile, not happy, but determined. "That's enough time. Kate says she's ready too." Kate Wilson had been a nurse before the Dominion came. Now she worked in medical disposal, getting rid of waste from the Dominion medical bay. She had been slowly collecting medicines that could be used as sedatives or poisons. "How many people do we have now?" Jack asked. 32, Tom said. "All have been practicing the pain control techniques. All are ready to move when we give the signal." The pain control techniques had been Tom's discovery. The collars worked by causing pain when a human disobeyed. But Tom had found that with practice, a human mind could separate itself from the pain. It didn't stop the pain, but it let a person think and act even while hurting. It wasn't easy, and not everyone could do it. But those who could had a weapon the Dominion didn't know about. "And the ship systems?" Jack asked. Tom's smile grew wider. "Robert says he can do it. He needs 10 minutes at a control panel, but once he's in, he can lock down sections of the ship and control the air." Robert Davis had been a scientist before the Dominion came. He'd spent 3 years studying the ship while working as a hull cleaner. The Dominion never worried about slaves learning their technology. Why would they? In their minds, humans were just smart animals. They didn't expect animals to understand complex systems. That was their biggest mistake. "We move in 3 days," Jack said. "When we dock at Station 4, security will be focused on the station, not on us." Tom nodded. "I'll tell the others." 1 tap for yes, 2 for no. They had developed a simple tap code to communicate. 1 tap on a wall or floor meant yes, 2 meant no. 3 rapid taps meant danger. It was simple but effective. The Dominion never noticed or cared when slaves tapped on things. As they talked, they heard footsteps. Quickly, Tom pretended to be showing Jack how to fix a waste pipe. A moment later, a Dominion technician walked by. It barely looked at them. Slaves fixing things was normal. Nothing to worry about. When the technician was gone, Jack put the signal blocker back in his hidden pocket. "We only get 1 chance at this," he said. "If we fail, we won't." Tom cut him off. "Everyone knows what's at stake." What was at stake was more than just their lives. It was the future of humanity. In 3 years, the Dominion had taken millions of humans from Earth. They were spread across dozens of worlds and ships working as slaves. If Jack and the others could take this ship, they could start fighting back. They could begin freeing other humans. They could show the Dominion that taking humans as slaves had been the worst mistake in their long history. Later that night, Jack lay on his thin sleeping mat in the slave quarters. Around him, 20 other men slept or pretended to sleep. The lights were never fully off in slave areas. The Dominion wanted to be able to see what their tools were doing at all times. Jack thought about Earth, about the blue sky and green trees, about the taste of real food and the feeling of rain on his face. He wondered if he would ever see his home world again. Then he thought about the plan. It was dangerous. Many of them would probably die. But they had no choice. Living as slaves wasn't really living at all. The next day passed slowly. Jack did his work and kept his head down. He managed to speak briefly with Kate when they crossed paths in a corridor. "Medical bay is ready," she whispered as she passed. "The ventilation system will carry the sedative to the Dominion quarters." Jack gave a small nod. Kate was brave. She had lost her husband when the Dominion first attacked Earth. She had nothing left to lose, which made her both dangerous and valuable. That night, a young human named Dan died in the engine room. He had been worked too hard for too long, and his heart simply stopped. The Dominion overseer had the body taken to waste disposal. To the Dominion, a dead slave was just broken equipment. As Jack watched Dan's body being dragged away, something hardened inside him. Dan had been just 20 years old. He should have had his whole life ahead of him. Instead, he died cleaning alien engines, treated as less than nothing. That night, Jack called together his core group: Tom, Kate, Robert, and Ben. Ben Wright had been a chef before the Dominion came. Now he worked in food preparation and had been collecting sharp implements that could be used as weapons. They met in a small maintenance space between walls, where the Dominion never went. "Dan's death changes things," Jack said. "We move tomorrow, not in 3 days." "But the ship won't be docked," Robert said. "Security will be higher." "Security is always watching the outside," Jack replied. "They never think the danger will come from inside, from slaves." He looked at each of them in turn. These people had been through hell. They were thin, scarred, and tired. But in their eyes, Jack saw something the Dominion had never understood about humans: unbreakable determination. "They think we're animals," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But they've never seen what happens when humans decide that just surviving isn't enough. When we decide that freedom is worth dying for." Tom nodded. "I can get the signal blockers to 30 people by morning. That's all we need to start." Kate held up a small vial of clear liquid. "This goes into the ventilation system. It will make them slow, confused. Not all will sleep, but it will help." Ben showed a piece of metal he had sharpened to a deadly point. "We're ready." Jack looked at them all and felt for the first time in 3 years a spark of hope. "Tomorrow," he said, "we take back our future." Morning came too quickly. Jack hadn't slept much. His mind kept going over the plan, looking for problems, thinking of solutions. By the time the lights brightened in the slave quarters, he was already awake and ready. The Dominion guards came, as they always did, clicking and whistling at the humans to get up. Jack stood with his head down, playing the part of the broken slave. Inside, his heart beat fast with fear and excitement. Today everything would change, one way or another. At the morning meal, Tom walked past Jack's table and dropped something small into his hand. The signal blocker. Jack slipped it into his hidden pocket without looking at it. Around the room, he saw other small exchanges happening. Their core team was passing out the devices to the 30 people they had chosen for the first wave. Each person had been picked carefully. They were the strongest, the smartest, or the most determined. They were people who could keep fighting even when things got bad. And things would get bad. Jack had no illusions about that. After the meal, the slaves went to their workstations. Jack and 5 others went to the engine room. The big Dominion overseer was already there, moving around on his 6 legs, checking that everything was running correctly. "You, Tool," the overseer said to Jack. "Clean the coolant pipes, they're running hot." Jack nodded and went to the tool locker. As he selected a cleaning tool, he looked at the other humans in the room. 3 of them had signal blockers. They were part of the plan. The other 2 didn't know anything about it. It was safer that way. If someone was caught and questioned, they couldn't tell what they didn't know. Jack began cleaning the coolant pipes. The work was hot and dangerous. If a pipe burst, the coolant would burn through human skin in seconds. The Dominion didn't care. If a slave died, they just got another one. As he worked, Jack waited for the right moment. The plan would start at exactly 1200 ship time. That was when the watch changed for the Dominion guards, and when Kate would put the sedative into the ventilation system. The minutes ticked by slowly. Jack's hands moved automatically, cleaning the pipes while his mind focused on the time. 11 Trambody. 11:55, 11:59. At exactly 1200, Jack pressed the small button on his signal blocker. The device made a soft humming sound. The collar around his neck grew warm, then cool. For 30 seconds it wouldn't work. For 30 seconds, he was free. Across the engine room, 3 other humans pressed their blockers at the same time. In that moment, the overseer turned, sensing something was wrong. He reached for the control that would activate all the collars in the room. He was too late. Jack was already moving, the heavy wrench in his hand swinging hard. It connected with the overseer's head with a sickening crunch. The alien made a high-pitched sound of pain and surprise, then fell to the floor. The 2 humans who weren't part of the plan stared in shock. One started to back away. "Listen to me," Jack said quickly. "We're taking the ship. You can help us or you can stay here, but we're not slaves anymore." One of the men nodded immediately. The other hesitated, then said, "The collars." "We have a way to block them," Jack said. "But we need to move fast." He went to the overseer's body and took the collar control device. With it, he could turn off the collars of anyone nearby. It wouldn't work for the whole ship, but it was better than nothing. "Mark, guard the door," Jack said to one of the men with a blocker. "The rest of you, with me." They left the engine room and moved quickly through the service tunnels. These narrow passages were used for maintenance and weren't monitored as closely as the main corridors. The humans who kept the ship running knew them well. At a junction, they met another group led by Tom. There were 7 of them, all looking nervous but determined. "Medical team is in position," Tom reported. "Kate got the sedative into the system 10 minutes ago. Most of the Dominion in their quarters should be affected by now." "Robert?" Jack asked. "Already at the auxiliary control room with his team," Tom said. "Ben is leading a group to secure weapons." They moved on, staying in the service tunnels as much as possible. Twice they had to cross main corridors. Both times they saw Dominion walking around, but the aliens seemed slower than usual, their movements not as precise. The sedative was working. When they reached the auxiliary control room, they found it already secured. Robert and his team of 4 had taken out the 2 Dominion technicians who normally worked there. Robert himself was at the main console, his fingers moving quickly over the alien controls. "How's it going?" Jack asked. Robert didn't look up. "I'm in the system, but there are security locks I didn't expect. I need more time." "How much time?" 10 minutes. Maybe less." Jack nodded. "You've got 5. Tom, stay here and help him. The rest of you with me." Jack led his growing team toward the armory. Along the way, they met Ben's group, who had secured several Dominion weapons. The weapons were designed for beings with 6 limbs, but the humans had figured out how to use them, with just 2 arms. "Bridge is locked down," Ben reported. "The Dominion captain has called for security teams, but there's confusion. They don't understand what's happening." Jack smiled grimly. "They're about to figure it out." They reached the armory and found 2 Dominion guards outside. The guards saw the armed humans and raised their weapons, but they were slow from the sedative. The humans fired first. The Dominion weapons made a high-pitched whine, and beams of intense heat shot out. The guards fell, their scaled bodies smoking. With the armory secured, Jack distributed weapons to everyone who knew how to use them. Then he contacted Robert through a communication device taken from a fallen guard. How much longer? Done. Robert's voice came back. I have control of internal systems. I've sealed off sections of the ship with high Dominion presence and vented atmosphere in some critical areas. Casualties? Jack asked. Unknown but high, Robert replied. Most of the crew was caught by surprise. Between the sedative and the atmosphere venting, I estimate we've neutralized 60% of the Dominion on board. That still left hundreds of Dominion to deal with. But now the humans had weapons, control of critical systems, and the element of surprise. Most importantly, they had something the Dominion couldn't understand. A burning desire for freedom that made them willing to risk everything. Jack's team moved toward the bridge. Along the way, they freed more human slaves, quickly explaining the situation. Some joined them immediately. Others, too afraid or too broken by years of slavery, hid or ran. Jack didn't blame them. Freedom was a scary thing when you'd gotten used to having no choices. As they approached the bridge, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The Dominion were organizing a response. Jack's team took positions in the corridor leading to the bridge. They had the advantage of position, but the Dominion would have numbers. Whatever happens next, Jack told his people, remember that we've already won. We're not slaves anymore. We've proven that humans can't be broken. Then the first wave of Dominion security forces came around the corner, their weapons ready. The battle for the subjugator had begun. The fighting was fierce. The Dominion were trained soldiers, but they were confused and slowed by the sedative. The humans fought with the desperate energy of people who had nothing to lose. Slowly, the humans pushed forward toward the bridge. They lost people along the way. Good people who had survived years of slavery, only to die fighting for freedom. Jack mourned each one but kept moving. Their sacrifice couldn't be wasted. Finally, they reached the bridge. The doors were sealed, but Robert, working from the auxiliary control room, overrode the locks. The doors slid open, and Jack led the charge inside. The bridge was large, with stations for 20 Dominion operators. Only 5 were present, along with the ship's captain, a large Dominion with gold markings on his scales. The captain stood. As the humans burst in, his posture showing shock rather than fear. You're making a mistake, the Dominion captain said, his translator making his clicks and whistles into flat English. You're nothing but primitive bipeds. You can't possibly operate a vessel of this complexity. Jack smiled as he pointed his weapon at the captain. Behind him, his people secured the rest of the bridge crew. That's the thing about humans, Jack said. We learn, we adapt, and we never ever forget who hurt us. The captain made a gesture, trying to activate something on his control panel. Jack fired his weapon. The beam hit the captain in the chest, burning a hole through his scaled body. The alien fell, dead before he hit the floor. Secure the rest of them, Jack ordered. Robert, what's our status? We control all critical systems, Robert's voice came through the communication device. Engineering, life support, weapons, engines, all ours. And the Dominion? Those who survived are trapped in sealed sections of the ship. They can't get out without our help, and they're running out of air. Jack nodded. It wasn't a clean victory. Many humans had died, and many Dominion as well. But the ship was theirs. For the first time in 3 years, humans controlled their own fate again. Set course away from Dominion space, Jack ordered. And send a message on all frequencies in every language we know. What message? Asked Anna, who had survived and now sat at the communication station. Jack looked around at the bridge at the faces of his people, former slaves who had taken their freedom back through courage and sacrifice. Tell them, he said, that the subjugator has a new name now. From this day forward, it's called Humanity's Vengeance, and we're just getting started. News of the Humanity's Vengeance spread through the Dominion Empire like wildfire, a warship taken by slaves. It was impossible, the Dominion leaders said. No species they had ever conquered had managed to overcome the neural collars, let alone mastered Dominion technology quickly enough to operate a warship, yet the impossible had happened, and it was only the beginning. On the bridge of the renamed warship, Jack stood looking at a star map. The ship had been traveling at top speed for 2 weeks, staying away from known Dominion patrol routes. In that time, they had learned more about the ship's systems, with Robert leading teams of humans who studied the Dominion technology day and night. "Captain," Anna called from her station, "we're picking up a signal. It's a Dominion transport ship." Jack walked over to her station. The screen showed a large vessel moving slowly through space. It wasn't a warship, but a transport, the kind used to move slaves between worlds. "How many life forms aboard?" Jack asked. Anna checked the sensors. "About 2,000 Dominion crew and nearly 5,000 human life signs." Jack felt his heartbeat faster. 5,000 humans, slaves being transported to some Dominion world to work and die for alien masters. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Tom, how are our weapons?" Tom, now the ship's weapons officer, checked his screen. "All systems ready. We can disable their engines with targeted shots." "Do it," Jack said. "But be careful. We don't want to hurt the humans on board." The Humanity's Vengeance moved into position behind the transport ship. The transport had sensors, but not very good ones. By the time they detected the warship approaching, it was too late. Tom fired the weapons. Beams of energy shot out, hitting the transport's engines with perfect accuracy. The transport slowed, then stopped, dead in space. "They're sending a distress signal," Anna reported. "Jam it," Jack ordered. "Robert, can you access their systems from here?" Robert, who had become the ship's systems expert, worked quickly at his station. "Yes, I think so. Their security isn't as good as a warship's. Give me 5 minutes." While Robert worked, the transport tried to restart its engines. It failed. "The Dominion crew was trapped. I'm in," Robert finally said. "I have control of their doors and life support." "Good," Jack said. "Open all the holding pens where they keep the humans, and send this message to the human sections only. This is Captain Jack Stone of the human vessel Humanity's Vengeance. We are here to free you. The Dominion crew is contained. Make your way to the docking bays. Freedom awaits." Robert sent the message. On the screen, they could see activity inside the transport. The human slaves were moving, flooding the corridors, heading toward the docking bays as instructed. The Dominion crew tried to stop them, but they were outnumbered. Many of the humans had been miners, strong despite years of poor treatment. They fought with tools, with bare hands, with anything they could find. "Prepare boarding parties," Jack told Ben, who had become his security chief. "We need to help them." Ben nodded and led teams of armed humans to the docking bays. They boarded the transport and helped guide the freed slaves back to the Humanity's Vengeance. It took hours to get all the humans aboard. The ship was crowded now, with barely enough room for everyone. But no one complained. They were free, and that was all that mattered. As for the Dominion crew of the transport, Jack gave them a choice: surrender or die. Most surrendered. They were put into the same holding pens they had used for human slaves. It seemed like justice. The next day, Jack called a meeting of his officers. The group had grown. Besides Tom, Robert, Kate, and Ben, there were now others. Anna had become communications officer. Mike, who had been found among the freed slaves, was now sensor operator again, just like on the horizon years ago. And there were new faces. Strong, smart people who had been freed from the transport and wanted to fight back. "We've struck our first blow," Jack told them. "But it's just the start. There are millions of humans enslaved across the Dominion Empire. We need to free them all." "We need more ships," Tom said. "One warship isn't enough." "The transport can be converted," Robert suggested. "It's not as powerful as a warship, but it can fight." "We also need information," Anna added. "Where are the largest groups of human slaves kept? Which facilities are the least defended?" They talked for hours, making plans. The freed humans from the transport had brought valuable information. They knew about other slave transports, about mining worlds where thousands of humans worked, about Dominion bases that weren't heavily guarded. Over the next few months, The human fleet grew. They captured 2 more transports and converted them into fighting ships. They raided a small Dominion outpost and took weapons and supplies. Each victory brought more freed humans to their cause. Each freed group brought new skills, new knowledge, and a burning desire for revenge against the species that had enslaved them. Word of the human rebellion reached the highest levels of the Dominion government. The Dominion Council, made up of the oldest and most powerful members of the species, met in their grand hall on Dominax Prime, their homeworld. "How is this possible?" demanded High Elder Vex, his scales turning red with anger. "These creatures were nothing when we found them. Primitive beings barely able to leave their own planet." "They are adaptable," said Commander Krell, the Dominion's most decorated military leader. "More so than any species we have encountered before. They learn quickly, and they work together in ways we did not expect." "Can you stop them?" asked another elder. Krell stood tall on his 6 limbs. "I will take a fleet of our best warships. I will find these rebel humans and crush them. This embarrassment will be ended." The elders approved the plan. Krell was given command of 15 warships, the largest fleet assembled in many years. They would hunt down the human ships and destroy them, but finding the humans proved harder than I expected. The human fleet never stayed in one place for long. They would appear, attack a Dominion facility, free any human slaves, and disappear before Dominion forces could respond. And the human fleet kept growing. 6 months after the capture of the subjugator, the humans had 7 ships. Not all were warships, but Robert and the other engineers had modified them, adding weapons and improving their speed. Finally, Krell got the break he was looking for. A damaged human ship left a trail that his scouts followed. The trail led to a star system with a small rocky planet. The human fleet was there, hiding in the shadow of the planet. "Prepare for battle," Krell ordered his fleet. "Today we end this human rebellion." The 15 Dominion warships moved into the system, their weapons ready. Krell was confident. He had superior numbers, superior firepower, and years of combat experience. The humans had a few stolen ships and no formal training. It would be an easy victory. He was wrong. The human fleet detected the Dominion ships coming. Instead of running or hiding, they formed a battle line. 7 ships against 15. The odds were bad, but the humans had something Krell didn't understand. A sense that they were fighting for their very existence as a species. "All ships battle formation," Jack ordered from the bridge of the Humanity's Vengeance. "Remember our plan. Hit and move. Don't stay in their firing solutions." The human fleet moved with surprising coordination. They had developed new tactics, taking advantage of their smaller size and greater maneuverability. The Dominion warships were powerful but slow to turn. The human ships darted in, fired their weapons at specific weak points, then moved away before the Dominion ships could respond effectively. It was chaos, but a controlled chaos that favored the humans. 3 Dominion warships were disabled in the first wave of attacks. 2 more were badly damaged when the humans targeted their engine cooling systems, causing them to overheat and shut down. Krell was shocked. His carefully planned attack was falling apart. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They used strange tactics, took risks no Dominion commander would consider, and seemed to anticipate his orders before he gave them. "All ships regroup," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on their flagship." The remaining Dominion ships turned their weapons on the Humanity's Vengeance. The human flagship took heavy damage but didn't retreat. Instead, it charged directly at Krell's command ship, firing all weapons. Direct hits damaged Krell's ship. Alarm sounded on his bridge. His weapons officer reported that main weapons were offline. His engine room reported damage to the propulsion systems. Then Krell saw something that made his scales turn pale with fear. The human ships were surrounding his command vessel. The other Dominion ships were too damaged or too far away to help. "This is Captain Jack Stone of the Humanity's Vengeance," came a message on all frequencies. "Surrender your vessel or be destroyed." Krell had never surrendered in his long career, but he was a practical commander. He knew when a battle was lost. "This isn't over, human," he said, as he gave the order to stand down. The Dominion has ruled this sector of space for 12,000 years. We will not be defeated by former slaves. You already have been, came the reply. The Battle of Proxima Centauri will be remembered as the day humanity showed the galaxy that the Dominion can be beaten. As Krell's ship was boarded by armed humans, he realized with growing dread that this human rebellion was no longer just an embarrassment to the Dominion. It was an existential threat. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Dominion had suffered a significant military defeat, and it had come at the hands of a species they had dismissed as barely sentient. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri. 1 year of constant fighting, freeing slaves, and building a force strong enough to challenge the mighty Dominion. The human fleet now numbered over 100 ships. Some were former Dominion vessels. Others were ships built by freed humans using Dominion technology and human creativity. On the bridge of the Humanity's Vengeance, Jack stood looking at a holographic map of Dominion space. The map had many red marks showing Dominion worlds and bases, but there were also blue marks showing places the humans had freed. The blue area was growing. Report, Jack said to his officers. Anna spoke first. The viral code is ready. Robert and his team have tested it on the systems we captured from Krell's ship. It works perfectly. The viral code had been Robert's idea. It was a piece of computer programming that could spread from one Dominion ship to another through their communication networks. Once inside a ship's systems, it would shut down weapons, engines, and life support. It wouldn't kill the Dominion crews, but it would leave their ships helpless. Ben? Jack turned to his security. Chief, the assault teams are ready, Ben reported. Every ship has trained fighters ready to board Dominion vessels once the virus disables them. Jack nodded. Tom, now fleet commander, checked his tablet. All ships report ready for jump. We can be at Dominax Prime in 6 hours. Dominax Prime, the Dominion homeworld. The center of the empire that had enslaved humanity and dozens of other species. It was protected by the largest fleet in Dominion space. Attacking it was either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. Kate? Jack asked. Kate had become the fleet's chief medical officer, but she was also in charge of communicating with other enslaved species the humans had found and freed during their campaign. The Rilari and Ventari ships are in position, she said. They will join us for the final attack. The Rilari were a bird-like species with advanced technology. The Ventari were massive beings who lived in high-gravity worlds. Both had been enslaved by the Dominion for centuries. When humans freed them, they joined the fight eagerly. Then we're ready, Jack said. Send the order to all ships. We jump to Dominax Prime in 1 hour. As his officers went to prepare, Jack stayed looking at the map. He thought about the 3 years he had spent as a slave, and the year of fighting to free his people. So many had died, but so many had been freed. The Dominion had taken millions of humans from Earth. They had thought humans would be perfect, slaves, smart enough to work complex machines but not smart enough to fight back effectively. They had been wrong. Humans were not just smart. They were creative, adaptable, and they understood something the Dominion never did. Real strength comes from working together, not from forcing others to serve you. Jack had learned that the Dominion had been ruling their part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. In all that time, no species had successfully rebelled against them, until humans came along. The Dominion Council was meeting in their Grand Assembly on Dominax Prime. Reports from across their empire all told the same story. Ships being disabled by an unknown virus then boarded by human forces. Slave worlds being liberated, Dominion forces retreating or surrendering. How is this possible? Demanded High Elder Vex. They were nothing. Animals with primitive technology. The other elders had no answer. Their civilization, built on the exploitation of lesser species, was facing its first real threat in thousands of years. Then something happened that shocked the council even more. Their secure meeting was interrupted by a communication signal that bypassed all their security protocols. The face of a human appeared on the large screen at the front of the chamber. It was Jack Stone. Older now, with scars and gray hair, but with eyes that burned with determination. "You called us slaves," he said simply. "That was your first mistake." The elders were too shocked to respond. How had this human hacked into their most secure communication system? "Your empire has stood for thousands of years because you've only encountered species who surrendered or fought alone," Jack continued. "Humanity does neither." At that moment, alarms began to sound throughout the Dominion capital city. The human fleet had arrived. Over 100 ships appeared in orbit around Dominax Prime. The Dominion home fleet moved to intercept them, but something strange happened. One by one, the Dominion ships went dark, their systems shutting down. "Your second mistake," Jack said, "was teaching us your technology while believing we couldn't understand it. We didn't just understand it, we improved it." The Dominion watched in horror as their home fleet powered down, leaving their world defenseless. The virus had spread through their entire network in minutes, disabling every ship, and your final mistake was believing that once broken we would never rise again. Humanity has faced extinction dozens of times in our history. Each time, we came back stronger. Jack's face was replaced by images from around the Dominion Empire. Human ships, freeing slaves on dozens of worlds. Former slave species joining the fight. Dominion bases surrendering to combined forces of humans, Rilari, Ventari, and other liberated peoples. "We're not here for revenge," Jack's voice continued over the images. "We're here to end your empire of slavery forever." The human fleet did not destroy Dominax Prime. They didn't have to. Instead, they landed troops who quickly took control of the main cities. The Dominion military, without their fleet and with their systems compromised by the virus, could not mount an effective defense. The Dominion Council was arrested by Ben and a team of human soldiers. They would stand trial for crimes against countless species. The Council Chamber, once the center of Dominion power, now became the meeting place for representatives of all the species they had enslaved. Over the next few months, the human-led alliance dismantled the Dominion Empire piece by piece. Every slave world was liberated. The neural inhibitor production facilities were destroyed. The Dominion military was disarmed and confined to their home system. 5 years after the first human was captured, the last Dominion slave world was freed. The species that had ruled a third of the galaxy found themselves restricted to their home system, their empire gone, their military broken. On the observation deck of the Humanity's Vengeance, Jack stood with Tom, Kate, Ben, and Robert, watching as representatives from 27 formerly enslaved species signed the Charter of Sentient Rights. It was a new beginning for this part of the galaxy, a promise that no species would ever enslave another again. "They never understood what they were dealing with," Tom said quietly. Jack nodded. "They saw our technology and thought it measured our worth. They should have looked at our history." He gazed at the stars, thinking of Earth. The planet was free again. The Dominion forces there had surrendered quickly when the human fleet arrived. Now humans were returning home, helping to rebuild what had been damaged during the occupation. But not all humans wanted to go back to Earth. Many, like Jack and his officers, had found a new purpose. There were other parts of the galaxy to explore, other species to meet. And there were still pirates and slavers out there who needed to be stopped. "What now, Captain?" Kate asked. Jack smiled. It was a real smile, something that had been rare during the years of slavery and war. "The Humanity's Vengeance was a good name for a warship," he said, "but I think it's time for a new name to match our new purpose." "What did you have in mind?" Robert asked. "Humanity's Promise," Jack said, "because that's what we are now. A promise that freedom is worth fighting for, and that no one should ever have to live as a slave." The others nodded their agreement. The war was over, the enslaved were free, and humanity had proven something important to the galaxy and to themselves. "They called us slaves," Jack said, looking out at the stars. "And we burned their armies to ash. But that was just the beginning of our story, not the end." As the Humanity's Promise prepared to leave orbit, Jack gave the order to set course for the unexplored regions beyond the former Dominion space. There were new worlds to discover, new civilizations to meet, and this time, Humans were going into the galaxy not as slaves or conquerors, but as explorers and protectors. Humanity had been forged in the fire of slavery and war. They had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. The galaxy would never be the same again. And that was a good thing. The vast meeting chamber of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Captain Tom Reed stepped forward. The blue light from the enormous dome above cast shadows across his face, making his determined expression look even more serious. He stood tall, in his crisp Earth Defense Force uniform, the small blue and green Earth patch on his shoulder seeming very small among the grand symbols of the alien civilizations around him. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Assembly," Tom began, his voice steady despite the hundreds of alien eyes watching him. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for welcoming us to this gathering of spacefaring peoples." Behind him stood his crew from the ship Perseverance, 6 humans who had traveled farther than any others in recorded history. Among them was Kay Wilson, the ship's chief engineer, a woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. While Captain Reed spoke, Kay watched the aliens closely, noting their reactions. The assembly chamber held representatives from 17 different species, each with their own section. Most impressive were the Stellar Covenant delegates, tall, beings with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their leader, Ambassador Vex, sat at the center of their delegation, his long fingers tapping impatiently against the smooth surface of his chair. When Tom finished his short speech, the room remained quiet for a moment. Then Ambassador Vex stood, his height nearly twice that of a human. He moved to the center of the chamber with a grace that made him appear to be floating. "We welcome Earth to this assembly," Vex said, his translator device giving his words a metallic tone. "It is always interesting to meet a new species that has just discovered the basics of space travel." Several of the alien delegates made sounds that the humans' translators identified as laughter. "You have done well to reach us with such primitive technology," Vex continued, not hiding the mockery in his voice. "Your warp drive design is particularly amusing. We have not seen one so basic in many centuries." Kay Wilson frowned and stepped forward to stand beside her captain. "Our warp drive got us here safely," she said. "It meets all our needs." Vex's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. "Of course it did, but you should see how a proper drive functions. Your design is dangerously unstable, a child's drawing compared to true engineering." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Tom maintained his diplomatic smile, but Kay could see the muscles in his jaw tightening. "Perhaps the Stellar Covenant would be willing to share some of their expertise," Tom suggested, keeping his voice level. Vex made a sweeping gesture with his long arm. "We would be delighted to guide your species toward proper technological development. It is, after all, our duty to help the less advanced." After the formal meeting ended, the human crew was shown to their quarters in the assembly station. The rooms were large and comfortable, but Kay couldn't relax. She paced back and forth while Tom sat at the small table, reviewing notes on his tablet. "They treated us like children," Kay said, unable to hide her anger. "Did you see how they laughed at our ship designs?" Tom nodded. "I saw. But we need their goodwill if Earth is going to join the galactic community." "Something felt off about their technology," Kay said, stopping her pacing. "When they showed us the schematics of their warp drive, I can't explain it, but it seemed familiar somehow." Tom looked up from his tablet. "Familiar? How?" "I don't know exactly." Kay frowned. "But I'd like permission to review our historical engineering archives. There's something about their design that reminds me of something I've seen before." "Do it," Tom said. "Any edge we can get in understanding their technology will help us." Later that night, while most of the crew slept, Kay sat in her quarters surrounded by holographic displays. She had accessed the Perseverance's complete engineering archives and was searching through historical designs. "Computer, show me warp field theories from the 21st and 22nd centuries," she said. The computer displayed dozens of theoretical designs from Earth's early attempts at faster-than-light travel. Kay spent hours comparing them to what she had seen of the Stellar Covenant's technology. At 3:47 ship time, she found something that made her sit up straight. Computer, overlay this João Martinez warp field theory from 2138 with the Stellar Covenant design we saw today. The computer combined the images, and Kay's breath caught in her throat. The basic structures were almost identical. The alien design had more complex elements, but the core principles, the way the field was generated and maintained, matched the human design from over 2 centuries ago. Kay immediately called Captain Reed. "Tom, you need to see this," she said when he answered, his face showing he'd been asleep. "I think the Stellar Covenant's advanced warp drive is based on human designs." 20 minutes later, Tom stood in Kay's quarters, staring at the holographic displays with wide eyes. "That's impossible," he said. "The João Martinez theory was never successfully built. It was abandoned as too unstable." "Exactly," Kay said, excitement in her voice. "But look at the field containment structure in the Covenant design. It's the same basic approach, but with some modifications to improve stability. But the foundation, the core concept, that's human work." Tom shook his head. "How could aliens from across the galaxy be using technology based on human designs that never even made it past the theoretical stage on Earth?" "I don't know," Kay admitted. "But there's more. Look at these." She pulled up several other comparisons: communication systems, shield designs, and power distribution networks. In each case, there were striking similarities between the alien technology and abandoned human theoretical designs from the past 2 centuries. "This can't be coincidence," Tom said, finally accepting what he was seeing. "But how? Did they steal our design somehow?" "I don't think so," Kay said. "These human designs were all theoretical. Most were abandoned as impractical or replaced by better approaches. Why would advanced aliens steal failed human theories?" Tom rubbed his face, trying to process what this meant. "We need to report this to Earth Command immediately, and we need more information." "I agree," Kay said. "But we should be careful who we tell here. If the Covenant realizes we've noticed the similarities..." Tom nodded. "We keep this between us for now. Tomorrow we'll accept their offer to guide our technological development. That should give us access to more of their designs. And I'll keep digging through our archives," Kay added. "There's something bigger going on here. I can feel it." As they spoke, on the other side of the station, Ambassador Vex was meeting with the Stellar Covenant High Council via secure transmission. "The humans show no sign of recognition," Vex reported. "They accept their place as technological infants." The shadowy figure on the screen nodded. "Good. Keep them ignorant. If they ever discover the truth about their past..." "They won't," Vex assured the council. "How could they? That knowledge was lost a millennium ago." But even as he spoke, Kay Wilson was pulling up another file from the depths of Earth's historical archives. A theoretical paper written by a forgotten engineer in 2103, describing a revolutionary approach to interstellar travel. An approach that the Stellar Covenant now claimed as the pinnacle of their own technological achievement. The truth was beginning to emerge, one ancient file at a time. Dr. Alex Morgan wiped sweat from his forehead as the hot desert sun beat down on the dig site. The Atacama Desert in Chile was one of the driest places on Earth, which made it perfect for preserving ancient artifacts. But it also made it a challenging place to work. "Water break, everyone," Alex called to his team of 12 archaeologists and workers. As they gathered under the large shade tent, a young assistant named Jack rushed up to him, excitement clear on his dusty face. "Dr. Morgan, you need to see this right away," Jack said, nearly out of breath. Alex followed Jack to the eastern edge of the dig site where ground-penetrating radar had detected something unusual the day before. Now, a 2-meter-wide hole had been carefully dug, revealing what looked like a metal hatch. "We just uncovered it 10 minutes ago," Jack explained. "It's unlike anything we've seen before." Alex knelt beside the hole. The metal surface was smooth and showed almost no signs of corrosion despite being buried in the earth. Most striking was a symbol etched into its center, a design that looked remarkably like the modern United Earth emblem, but with subtle differences. "This can't be right," Alex muttered, brushing sand away from the edges of the hatch. "This metal alloy looks advanced. Maybe titanium-based, but with something else mixed in. Nothing like this should be here." "How old do you think it is?" Jack asked. "I have no idea," Alex admitted, "but we're going to find out." Within hours, the team had fully exposed the hatch and was preparing to open it. They set up lights, cameras, and sensors to document everything. Alex felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as he turned the large handle that had been uncovered. To everyone's surprise, the mechanism moved smoothly, as if it had been maintained recently. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the hatch opened. "It's been sealed this whole time," Alex whispered in amazement. "Airtight after all these years." Below the hatch was a metal ladder leading down into darkness. The team lowered lights, revealing a corridor that stretched beyond their air visibility. 3 days later, Alex sat in a secure video conference with government officials from around the world. On his tablet were thousands of photographs and scans taken from what they now knew was a massive underground facility. The carbon dating results came back, Alex explained to the grim-faced officials on his screen. Multiple samples all confirm the same timeline. This facility was built and sealed approximately 1,000 years ago. "That's impossible," said the United Earth Science Director, an older woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair. "Human civilization didn't have this level of technology 1,000 years ago. We're talking about the early Middle Ages." "I know what history tells us," Alex replied. "But the evidence doesn't lie. This facility contains technology that in some ways exceeds our current capabilities. And there's more." He paused, selecting a specific image on his tablet. "We found documentation, actual physical books and data storage devices that we've been able to partially recover." Alex shared his screen, showing pages of technical diagrams and text in an archaic form of English. "These documents suggest that humans achieved interstellar travel a millennium ago. They built ships capable of reaching nearby star systems. But then something happened. Some kind of event that made them abandon this technology and bury all evidence of it." The officials began talking all at once, voices raised in disbelief and concern. Alex waited for them to quiet down. "There's one more thing you need to know," he continued. "Yesterday I received a highly classified communication from the crew of the Perseverance at the Galactic Assembly. Their engineer, K. Wilson, has discovered striking similarities between alien technology and theoretical designs from our own history. But what Wilson found in Earth's archives, we've found built and functional in this facility." The room fell silent. "Are you suggesting," the defense minister finally asked, "that aliens stole technology from an advanced human civilization that existed 1,000 years ago? A civilization that our history has no record of?" "The evidence points to something like that," Alex confirmed. "Though we don't yet know if it was theft or something else. What's clear is that there's a connection." The next day, a military transport landed near the dig site, bringing Captain Tom Reed and Kay Wilson back to Earth. They had been recalled as soon as Alex's initial findings were reported. Alex met them at the entrance to the underground facility, which was now surrounded by security personnel and scientific equipment. "So this is where our past was buried," Tom said as they descended the ladder into the facility. "It's incredible," Alex told them as they walked through the corridor. "The preservation is perfect. It's like they sealed it yesterday, not 1,000 years ago." The corridor opened into a large room filled with what were clearly workstations and equipment. Kay walked immediately to what appeared to be an engine design station, her eyes wide with recognition. "This is it," she said, touching the surface of a display that had been dark for centuries but had recently been powered up by the research team. "These are the same field equations I found in the Stellar Covenant's warp drive. But these are more refined, more complete." Tom examined other parts of the room. "Why would our ancestors hide this? And why don't we have any record of this civilization in our history?" Alex led them deeper into the facility, to a room they had only recently unsealed. Inside was what appeared to be a meeting chamber, with a large table in the center. On the wall was a massive display showing star maps. "We think we found the answer in here," Alex said. He activated a data tablet they had managed to interface with the ancient systems. "This contains records of a meeting. The last meeting, held in this facility apparently." The three of them gathered around the tablet as Alex played a recovered video file. The image was grainy but showed people dressed in uniform sitting around the very table they were standing near. "The power source is fundamentally flawed," a woman in the recording said. Her language, an older form of English that was still understandable. "The more ships we build, the greater the risk. We've already lost the Ganymede colony. If we continue, we could destabilize space-time throughout this entire sector." "So we just give up?" another person asked angrily. "Abandon everything we've built?" "Not give up. Pause," the woman replied. "We hide our technology until we can develop a safer alternative. We remove all traces from public knowledge. Let humanity develop more slowly, more carefully. When we rediscover space travel naturally, perhaps we'll be wiser." The recording ended, leaving Tom, Kay, and Alex in silence. "They deliberately erased themselves from history," Tom finally said, "to protect us. And now we're using the same dangerous technology again," Kay added, "only we're getting it secondhand from aliens who don't seem to understand the risks." "There's more," Alex said, his face grave. "We found design specifications for their power source. It creates energy by tapping into what they called subdimensional space. But their notes warn that without proper containment, it can cause cascading failures that tear apart the fabric of reality itself." Kay's face paled. "The Stellar Covenant's ships all use a power source they call a dimensional tap. It's the one system they were most secretive about." She looked at Tom. "We need to warn them." "Will they even believe us?" Tom asked. Before anyone could answer, Alex's communication device beeped. He answered and listened for a moment, his expression growing concerned. "What is it?" Tom asked. "A message from the Galactic Assembly," Alex replied. "A Stellar Covenant colony on Proxima Centauri 2 just reported a critical power system failure. Their main reactor is destabilizing." Kay looked at the ancient warning displayed on the tablet. "It's starting," she said quietly. "Just like our ancestors predicted." Alarms blared throughout the underground facility as Alex, Tom, and Kay rushed to the main research area. Scientists and military personnel moved quickly, setting up communication links with Earth Command and the distant Galactic Assembly. "What exactly is happening at the Stellar Covenant colony?" Tom asked, his captain's training keeping his voice steady despite the crisis. A communications officer looked up from her station. "Reports are fragmented, sir. The colony on Proxima Centauri 2 is experiencing power fluctuations. Their main reactor is showing signs of instability similar to what we just learned about in the ancient records." Kay pushed her way to a workstation where she had been examining the old human technology. "We need to understand exactly how the ancient humans contained these failures," she said, her fingers flying across the interface. "There must be emergency protocols in these records." Alex joined her, pulling up the translations they had made of the ancient documents. "Here," he said, pointing to a section of text. "They developed a containment procedure after the Ganymede incident. They called it Protocol Firebreak." Kay read quickly. "This is it. They found a way to stabilize the reaction by inverting the dimensional field and creating a controlled collapse." She looked up. "But the equipment needed to do this." "Would we have time to build it?" Tom asked. Kay shook her head. "Not traditional building, no, but..." She turned to Alex. "Did you find any actual equipment in this facility? Not just plans, but working technology?" Alex nodded slowly. "Yes, in the lower levels. We found what appears to be a small ship with its power core intact. We haven't activated anything following safety protocols." "Take me there," Kay said. "Now." 20 minutes later, they stood in a large chamber that had remained sealed for a millennium. In the center sat a sleek vessel about the size of a modern shuttle. Its design was both familiar and strange, clearly human in its basic shape. but with technology that looked both advanced and somehow ancient at the same time. Kay walked around the ship examining its outer hull. This is incredible, the workmanship. It's perfect. She found what appeared to be an access panel and placed her hand on it. To everyone's surprise, the panel slid open, responding to her touch. Biometric security that still works after 1,000 years? Alex whispered in amazement. Maybe it's not keyed to specific individuals but to human DNA in general, Kay suggested. She peered inside the open panel. This is what we need, the containment module for their dimensional drive. If we can get this to the Covenant colony, we might be able to adapt it to their systems. Tom was already on his communication device. Earth Command, this is Captain Reed. We need immediate authorization to remove technology from the ancient facility and transport it to the Perseverance. The Proxima Centauri colony is in imminent danger. The response came quickly. Authorization granted, Captain. All resources are at your disposal. Save those people if you can. Within hours, the small ship had been carefully extracted from the facility and transported to the landing field where the Perseverance waited. Engineers worked frantically to remove the containment module, while Kay studied the ancient technical manuals. Tom found her bent over a workstation, surrounded by both modern and 1,000-year-old technical documents. Will it work? He asked, quietly. Kay looked up, her eyes red from strain. The principles are sound. This technology it's brilliant, Tom. Our ancestors understood the dangers of dimensional energy better than the Covenant does now. She rubbed her eyes. The containment module creates a controlled inversion that can safely collapse an unstable reaction. But there's a problem. What? The Covenant modified their power cores. They took our ancestors' design and improved it without understanding the fundamental principles. Their changes made the reactors more powerful but also more dangerous. She gestured to the screen. I need to modify this containment module to work with their altered design. Can you do it? Tom asked. Kay nodded slowly. I think so. But we'll need help from their engineers when we get there. They'll have to trust us enough to let us access their systems. After the way they mocked us, that won't be easy, Tom said. They might change their attitude when their colony is about to be destroyed, Kay replied grimly. 2 days later, the Perseverance dropped out of warp near Proxima Centauri II. The planet's night side was visible, its cities glowing with artificial light. But one area on the northern continent pulsed with an unnatural blue glow. That's the main colony, Tom said from the captain's chair. The reactor facility is in the center of that blue light, sensors showing massive energy fluctuations. The dimensional barriers are already breaking down, Kay said, looking at her readings. We don't have much time. When they established communication with the colony, Ambassador Vex's face appeared on the screen. Gone was his superior expression, replaced by barely controlled panic. Captain Reed, he said, surprise evident in his voice. What are you doing here? We picked up your distress signal, Tom replied, not mentioning the ancient facility or how they really knew about the crisis. We've had experience with similar power systems and might be able to help. Vex hesitated only briefly. We would welcome any assistance. The situation is critical. Our best engineers can't stabilize the reactor. We're bringing a specialized containment device, Tom said. Engineer Wilson will need full access to your systems and cooperation from your technical teams. Granted, Vex said immediately. Please hurry. When they landed, the situation was worse than they had feared. The colony's reactor building was surrounded by a shimmering field of blue energy that warped the very air around it. Covenant civilians were being evacuated, while engineers worked desperately at control stations. Ambassador Vex met them at the landing pad, his silver skin now pale and dull with stress. 2 million people live in this colony, he said without preamble. We've evacuated half, but there's no time for more. Our scientists say the reactor will reach critical failure in less than 3 hours. Kay was already directing the unloading of the ancient containment module. Take me to your main control center, she told Vex, and I need your best engineers. In the colony's control center, Kay quickly realized how dire the situation was. The Covenant engineers had been trying to shut down the reactor using standard protocols, but those methods were actually making the instability worse. "You need to stop what you're doing," she told them firmly. "Every attempt to power down is creating more dimensional fractures." The lead Covenant engineer, a tall female named Lear, looked at her with distrust. "How could you possibly know this? Your species has barely mastered basic warp technology." Instead of arguing, Kay pulled out a tablet and showed Lear the ancient schematics they had brought from Earth. "These are the original designs your power core is based on. Your version has modifications here, here, and here," she said, pointing to specific sections. "Those changes have removed critical safety systems that were designed to prevent exactly this type of cascade failure." Lear stared at the schematics, her expression changing from dismissal to shock. "These designs, they're human, but they're far more advanced than anything your species has produced. They're from our past," Kay said simply. "A past we're only now rediscovering, but right now that doesn't matter. What matters is stopping that reactor from destroying this colony." Lear studied the containment module the humans had brought. "This might work, but we'll need to modify the connection points to interface with our systems." "Then let's get to work," Kay said. "We have less than 3 hours." As humans and aliens began working together for the first time as equals, Ambassador Vex pulled Tom aside. "These designs," he said quietly, "they really are human in origin?" Tom nodded. "From about 1,000 years ago, our ancestors built this technology, then abandoned it because they recognized the dangers your people have rediscovered." Vex's expression was unreadable. "The Council will not be pleased to learn this." "The truth is often uncomfortable," Tom replied. "But right now, let's focus on saving your people." Outside, the blue glow around the reactor building grew more intense, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. The race against time had begun. The reactor control room hummed with frantic activity. Kay Wilson stood at the central console with Lear, the Covenant's chief engineer. Both of them were covered in sweat, their hands flying over the controls as they worked to integrate the ancient human containment module with the alien system. "The power fluctuations are getting worse," Lear reported, her silver skin reflecting the pulsing red emergency lights. "Dimensional fractures are appearing throughout the facility." Kay nodded grimly. She could see the readings herself. The reactor was tearing holes in reality. Through the control room's reinforced windows, she could see the main reactor chamber, where the air itself seemed to ripple and distort like heat waves on a summer road. "The containment field connections are at 80%, Kay said. "We need at least 95 for the stabilization sequence to work." Outside the reactor building, Captain Tom Reed coordinated with Covenant security forces to maintain the evacuation. The colony city's streets were filled with frightened aliens rushing toward transport ships. The ground shook with increasing frequency, and in the distance, objects could be seen floating upward as gravity itself became unstable around the reactor. "How much longer?" Tom asked through his communicator. "At least 30 more minutes for full integration," Kay replied, her voice tight with strain. "But I don't think we have that long. The reactor's degradation is accelerating." At the colony's spaceport, Ambassador Vex supervised the loading of evacuation ships. His normally perfect composure had vanished, replaced by genuine fear, as he helped children and elderly Covenant citizens board the vessels. When his communicator buzzed, he answered immediately. "Ambassador, this is the High Council," came a stern voice. "Our sensors detect a critical situation at the colony. What is happening?" Vex swallowed hard. "Reactor destabilization, Council member. We are evacuating and attempting emergency containment." "With human assistance, we understand," the Council member said coldly. "This is unacceptable. Our technical superiority must be maintained." Vex looked around at the chaos, at the terrified faces of his people. Something shifted inside him. "With respect, Council member," he replied, "our technical superiority is currently destroying an entire colony. The humans may be our only hope of stopping it." He ended the transmission before the council could respond and rushed back toward the reactor. There was no time for politics now. Back in the control room, Kay had made a difficult decision. "We can't wait for full integration," she told Lear. "We need to activate the containment field now, at partial strength." "That's extremely risky," Lear objected. "If the field fails, it could accelerate the breakdown." "If we wait, we're guaranteed to lose the whole colony," Kay countered. "Sometimes you have to take a risk." Lear studied the human's face for a moment, then nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Manual control of the reactor's magnetic bottle," Kay said. "When I activate the containment field, you'll need to precisely match its frequency to create a harmonic resonance. It's the only way to force a controlled collapse with a partial connection. That requires microsecond timing," Lear said. "Even our computer systems can't guarantee that level of precision." Kay gave a grim smile. "That's why we're going to do it ourselves by hand. Your people have the reflexes, and I have the knowledge of how this system works." As they prepared for this desperate attempt, Tom Reed and Dr. Alex Morgan arrived at the control room, accompanied by Ambassador Vex. "The last evacuation ships are leaving now," Tom reported, "but there are still over 500,000 people who won't make it out in time. Then we'd better not fail," Kay said without looking up from her work. Alex had been studying the ancient human documents on his tablet. "Kay, there's something else in these records. The Ganymede incident they mentioned, they didn't just contain, they redirected the energy." Kay looked up sharply. "Redirected it where?" "Into a controlled dimensional pocket," Alex explained. "A temporary subspace that collapsed safely once the energy dissipated." Kay turned to Lear. "Is there any uninhabited space nearby? Preferably without any ships or stations?" Lear nodded. "The asteroid field in the outer system. It's a designated hazard zone, no ships pass through it." "Perfect," Kay said. "We can modify the containment field to create a directional collapse, channeling the energy there instead of trying to suppress it completely." As they quickly reworked their plan, Ambassador Vex approached Tom. "Captain Reed," he said quietly, "I owe you and your people an apology. Our mockery of your technology was misplaced." Tom shook his head. "This isn't the time for apologies, Ambassador. Let's save your people first." Vex nodded. "When this is over, there will be many difficult conversations between our civilizations." "Looking forward to it," Tom said with a hint of a smile. A violent tremor shook the building, stronger than any before. Alarms blared as new warnings appeared on the control screens. "Dimensional rupture expanding," Lear shouted. "Containment field is failing." "It's now or never," Kay said, hands poised over the controls. "Everyone get ready." The next few minutes were the most intense of Kay's life. As she activated the ancient human containment device, Lear matched the frequencies with incredible precision. Alex relayed critical information from the ancient documents, while Tom and Vex monitored the evacuation status and maintained communication with both Earth Command and the Covenant fleet. The reactor room filled with swirling blue energy as reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Through the reinforced windows, they could see equipment floating and distorting as if seen through rippling water. "Dimensional pocket forming," Kay announced, her voice tight with concentration. "Directional collapse initiated." "Energy is being channeled," Lear confirmed. "The asteroid field is showing massive disruption, but it's working." For one heart-stopping moment, the blue energy flared so brightly that everyone had to shield their eyes. The entire building groaned and shifted as if it might tear itself apart. Then suddenly the light dimmed and the shaking subsided. "Reaction stabilizing," Lear reported, disbelief in her voice. "Dimensional ruptures are closing. It's working." Kay slumped against the console, exhausted but relieved. "The containment field is holding. We've redirected about 80% of the excess energy. The rest is being safely dissipated." Outside, the strange blue glow faded from the sky above the colony. Gravity returned to normal. Objects that had been floating crashed back to the ground, and the ominous rumbling ceased. "Covenant control to all ships and citizens," Vex announced over the colony-wide communication system. "The danger has passed. The reactor has been stabilized. I repeat, the reactor has been stabilized. Cheers erupted throughout the control room. Covenant engineers embraced each other, and several even embraced the humans. Lear approached Kay with a look of newfound respect. You saved my people, she said simply. With technology we mocked as primitive. Not primitive, Kay corrected her. Ancient. There's a difference. Tom received a communication from Earth Command. After a brief conversation, he turned to the others with a serious expression. We've been ordered to bring Ambassador Vex and a delegation of Covenant engineers back to Earth, he announced. The ancient facility has revealed more information about the dimensional technology, information that both our peoples need to understand. Vex nodded solemnly. I will inform the High Council. After today's events, they will have little choice but to cooperate. As they prepared to leave the now safe reactor building, Kay took one last look at the containment module, ancient human technology that had saved an alien civilization. Our ancestors were right to hide this technology, she said quietly to Alex. It's incredibly powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. And now it's in the hands of multiple species across the galaxy, Alex replied. What does that mean for all of us? Kay had no answer for that. But as they stepped outside into the colony and saw the grateful faces of the people they had saved, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humans and aliens would face them together. The mockery had ended. Now came the hard part, understanding the true legacy of humanity's forgotten past. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Captain Tom Reed finished speaking. Behind him stood Kay Wilson, Dr. Alex Morgan, and a team of Earth scientists. Beside them, Ambassador Vex and the Covenant engineers who had witnessed the near disaster at Proxima Centauri. The two waited tensely for the Assembly's reaction. On the massive display screen behind them were images from Earth's ancient facility, clear evidence that humans had achieved advanced spacefaring technology, a millennium before most current civilizations had even discovered electricity. As you can see, Tom concluded, the dimensional drive technology currently used by the Stellar Covenant and several other Assembly members was originally developed by humans approximately 1,000 years ago. Our ancestors abandoned this technology not because it failed, but because they recognized its inherent dangers, dangers that nearly destroyed the Proxima Centauri colony 3 weeks ago. The leader of the Assembly, a wise old being named Director Mav from a species known for their scientific achievements, leaned forward. If what you claim is true, Captain Reed, it changes our understanding of galactic history. But I must ask, why did humans lose this knowledge? How could such an advanced civilization simply forget? Alex Morgan stepped forward. We believe it was deliberate, Director. The records we've discovered suggest our ancestors made a conscious decision to hide this technology and remove it from our history. They feared its destructive potential and wanted humanity to rediscover space travel more gradually, more safely. Murmurs spread through the assembly chamber as representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations grappled with this revelation. Some showed clear disbelief, others concern, and a few seemed angry. A representative from the Dorial Collective, known for their extensive historical archives, spoke next. We have records of encountering advanced technology in abandoned systems dating back 800 to 900 years. We always assumed these were left by a now extinct species. Could these have been human outposts? It's possible, Alex replied. We're still translating many of the records from the facility. But we've confirmed human settlements existed on Mars, several moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and at least 2 exoplanets in nearby star systems. Ambassador Vex, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally addressed the assembly. I can confirm that the technology used in our dimensional drives matches what was found in the Earth facility. The evidence is undeniable. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. The Stellar Covenant has been using imperfect copies of human technology for centuries, without understanding its origin or full principles. His admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Stellar Covenant had always positioned themselves as technological leaders of the assembly. Kay Wilson spoke up. What matters now isn't who created the technology first. What matters is that we need to work together to make it safe. The ancient humans developed potential solutions, but never implemented them before they abandoned the technology. We've recovered those designs, and with the Covenant's practical experience, we believe we can create a stable, safe version of the dimensional drive. Director Mav nodded thoughtfully. A collaboration, then, instead of mockery and competition. Exactly, Tom agreed. Our ancestors reached for the stars too quickly, without fully understanding the dangers. They were wise enough to recognize their mistake and pull back. Now we have a second chance, not just humans, but all spacefaring species working together. The Assembly voted overwhelmingly to create a joint research initiative, with Earth and the Stellar Covenant as equal leaders. The mockery that had greeted humans at their first Assembly meeting was replaced by respect and genuine curiosity. 3. Months later, Kay Wilson stood in the observation dome of the newly established Dimensional Research Station orbiting Earth. Beside her was Lear, who had become both a colleague and friend during their work together. The modified containment systems have been installed in all 17 Covenant colony reactors, Lear reported. No more destabilization events have been recorded. Kay nodded, looking out at the stars. The shipyard on Mars has begun construction of the first test vessel using the new safe drive design. If it works as expected, interstellar travel will become both faster and safer than ever before. Your ancestors would be proud, Lear said. Their caution and wisdom may have saved countless lives across multiple civilizations. On the other side of the dome, Tom Reed and Ambassador Vex were reviewing reports from exploration teams investigating possible ancient human outposts. We've confirmed human artifacts on 3 systems so far, Tom said, including what appears to be an intact outpost on HD 4307G. My people are still struggling with this new understanding of our place in the galaxy, Vex admitted. For generations, we believed ourselves to be the most advanced spacefaring civilization. To learn that we've been using borrowed technology all along, if it helps, Tom said with a slight smile, humans are equally shocked. Our history books never mentioned any of this. We're rewriting our understanding of our own past. Perhaps that is something our people share, Vex replied. A need to rediscover who we truly are. In a secure research lab beneath the station, Dr. Alex Morgan led a team examining the oldest artifacts recovered from Earth's ancient facility. Most intriguing was a sealed container that had only recently been opened, containing what appeared to be personal logs from the leaders of the ancient human space program. Listen to this, Alex said to his colleagues, reading from a translated document. The dimensional breach near Tau Ceti revealed entities unlike anything we had encountered before. Not life as we understand it, but something else. Something that exists in the spaces between realities. They were drawn to our drive signatures like moths to flame. After what happened to the Ganymede research station, we cannot risk further contact. These entities do not appear hostile, but their mere presence destabilizes our reality. Until we understand them better, we must step back from the stars. Alex looked up at his stunned colleagues. They didn't just abandon the technology because it was unstable. They encountered something out there, something they weren't prepared to face. That evening, the station's leaders gathered for a private meeting to discuss this troubling revelation. Kay, Tom, Alex, Vex, Lear, and Director Mav sat around a table remarkably similar to the one found in the ancient facility. If these entities were drawn to the old drive signatures, Kay said, our new designs might still attract them, but we have no proof they still exist, Vex pointed out. This was 1,000 years ago. Do we tell the assembly? Tom asked, looking at Director Mav. The old alien was quiet for a moment. Not yet. First, we must learn more. We will proceed with the new drive tests, but with extreme caution and additional sensors specifically designed to detect any unusual phenomena. As they discussed next steps, Alex couldn't help but think about the cyclical nature of the situation. 1,000 years ago, humans had reached the stars, encountered something they weren't prepared for, and retreated. Now, multiple species were poised to take that same journey together. Would the outcome be different this time? He hoped so. On Earth, in the ancient facility, researchers continued to uncover and translate more records. In a chamber that had not yet been fully explored, they found a wall covered with images, star maps with certain systems marked with warning symbols, and at the center, a single message written in the ancient script. They are waiting in the year, dark between stars. Prepare better than we did. The truth about humanity's past had been revealed, but perhaps the greater revelation and the greater challenge still lay ahead, in the depths of space where ancient humans had gone before, and from which they had fled in fear. This time, humanity would not face that challenge alone. The hue, mockery had given way to respect, and respect had blossomed into alliance. Whatever waited between the stars would face not a single species, but a united front of all spacefaring civilizations. And perhaps that was what the ancient humans had hoped for all along.